So I'm going to precursor this with I only put my name in the hat so that my friend would put her name in the hat.
Oh, no.
And I'm here and she's not, so that's how that turned out, in case you're curious. Also, it's weird the things that run through your head when you come up to do something like this. I just checked my shoe for toilet paper. I haven't been in the restroom since I left my apartment, but I still checked. I am also going to precursor this a little bit with, there's a lot of backstory to this, and it all leads up to something, I promise. I'm not just standing up here mindlessly rambling because I thought of this while I was sitting here listening to somebody else talk and I'm not prepared at all, but that's part of it. So much like our previous teller, I am also not from the Midwest. I'm not even almost from the Midwest. I'm not even kind of from the Midwest. I just moved here in June from my home in Honolulu. Yeah, yay me. So great. So this story kind of goes back to a time where the questions I asked myself in January were more along the lines of what bikini should I put in my car today, and less of can I get from my apartment to the car before my snot freezes. Yeah. So I moved back to the islands full-time after I finished my undergraduate degree, and I was so excited. I got there, and I got into graduate school, and I shipped over my car, because my car was still with my parents in Tennessee, and I had this Dodge Charger. It was a 2008 Dodge Charger, and when it was new, I thought it was the best thing ever. I got it when I was like 19, 20 years old, and it was the first awesome adult thing that I had ever had for myself, because I was 19 and I thought, this is it, this is the epitome of adultness. It's not. But I had this car and it was so great, and it was the love of my life. I joked for years that my Dodge Charger was the only man that I really trusted, which, spoiler alert, wasn't really a joke. And so I shipped it over. I shipped it from Tennessee to Hawaii. And when it got there, things started to go downhill. I was waitressing at the time as I put myself through grad school. Much like as I went through undergrad, I waitressed. Not the best time of my life, but that's okay. We all have that job that we're not super proud of. For me, it was 7 years of waitressing. And my first week at my restaurant, as I'm trying to figure out how to get back into this student thing, and I'm trying to figure out how to make the most tips as possible, and on and on and on. My first week at this new restaurant, my Dodge Charger, the love of my life, got broken into 3 separate times. Yeah, it was so great. And the first time they broke into my car, they took my handbag that had all of my graduate school textbooks in it. And I have a master's degree in counseling, so I was a therapy student, which means that one of these textbooks was the DSM-4, which, that person knows how expensive that book is. Also, let's go back to the point where I'm now living off of tips. I was so happy. So they took all of my textbooks and all of my notes, and the second time they broke in, they took my iPod, which my dad had inscribed for me when I graduated or high school, maybe? I don't even remember, but it was super touching, and I had this really cool double-ended auxiliary cord that I used to play my iPod through my super cool car, and it was lime green because I was 19 and super cool, everything was great. And in a week, it was just all gone. And this car that I had just loved when it was new was suddenly not something I could trust anymore. So we fast forward about 2 years later. I'm now at the tail end of my graduate school program, and I'm interning, which also means I'm still waitressing because read intern, I worked for free. I was a substance abuse therapist for the Hawaii court systems. I worked with a nonprofit, and I won't go into too many details because, again, going on the internet. But I had a really, really wonderful experience. I worked with minors who had been incarcerated for drug crimes. So most of my clients were teenage meth addicts, actually. And there was this one time in therapy where I'm sitting in the correctional facility across the table from this boy who was a young teenager. And it's so surreal to be in this situation because you have these kids who are just kids. Like, they make a lot of really bad choices and they do a lot of really stupid things. But what kid doesn't? These ones just didn't know that instead of, cutting off your sister's ponytails when she was asleep, they're just going to do drugs instead. They think it's kind of parallel. And they didn't know any better, and it's sad. And I had this opportunity to reach out there and help them and be a support for them, and it was humbling. And kind of weird, because you're in this room, and there's a lot of glass, and there's a lot of people passing, and a lot of big, beefy security guards walking by, like, what's going on in there? And it's so weird. It's not the situation that you think of when you think of therapy, with the comfy couch and the weird calming pictures of cats and stuff. And there was this moment where I was processing with my client the things that he did when he was high that he wouldn't necessarily do when he wasn't. So things that bothered him a lot as he's sitting here now, reflecting on the times that, the things he had done when he was, on the outs. And he used to talk about how he would sell things for drug money. And when he got through selling all of his grandmother's stuff and all of his stuff, he started breaking into cars. Oh yeah. And so he would talk about this shopping center that had restaurants and a movie theater and all kinds of stuff, and he would just go and break into cars. And he talked about, he did talk about the things that made him feel bad. Like, apparently he broke into a minivan once and took an entire cheese balls thing full of coins that said Disneyland money and kids' handwriting on it. Oh yeah, that hits you right in the feels. But then he starts bragging a little about trying to bring the mood back up because he didn't like focusing on how shitty, a little person he was turning into be. Come on, who really likes to sit there and talk to their therapist about their flaws? Not me, and I am one, ugh. So he starts talking about these cars that he had hit that he had gotten a lot of profit from, like people who'd left iPhones in cars or people that he had left, whatever. And he starts talking about this car that he hit 3 times. It gets better. He starts talking about this car that he and his best friend, another one of my clients, had hit 3 times in 1 week. And he starts talking about how he got a lot of really expensive books and how he got an iPod that didn't quite work right. The screen was a little funky, but it was cool. And he got this lime green auxiliary cord that he thought was the coolest thing ever. Yeah, I did too. And I had this moment, there was this brief moment where, when you watch those movies, and all of a sudden, the conversation starts to fade out and the camera zooms in on one person's face and this ethereal music starts playing and you're like, oh, okay, we're supposed to concentrate on this person because what's actually happening doesn't matter anymore. I was having that moment. It was happening to me. I could hear little angels singing in the corner of the correctional facility up there with the spiders and the cobwebs and the stuff. As I was sitting here thinking, this kid robbed me blind. I had to drop close to $1,000 to replace the things and the damage to my vehicle, my pride and joy, which I no longer had at that point. That's a different story. And it hit me. I'm very proud of myself to this day that I was able to finish that therapy session. He had no idea that was my car. I did not tell him. I processed it with my supervisor later, and we decided, because of the way I handled it, I could continue the relationship. So I worked with this kid for about another 6 months or so, and he never knew. His friend never found out that they had robbed their therapist for drug money. Yeah, but it's funny because reflecting on that story, which is something I do quite a bit, because who wouldn't? It's ridiculous. We put a lot of things on pedestals when they're new, whether it's possessions or people or relationships or jobs or moving to the Midwest in the winter. There's a lot of these when they were new experiences that we just put up there for good reasons or for bad. Either way, we think either the best or the worst of a situation. That's just how we are. We're binary as people. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to step back and think, in the long run, it was just a car. I have another DSM-4. It's in my office right now. Ask me when the last time I opened it was. No. So it makes me wonder, how many times do we look at these new situations and let ourselves really get intimidated by the newness, whether it is a positive newness or a negative one, and we just let that consume us? I was so consumed by how new and wonderful my car was, and my lime green auxiliary cord, and all of this awesome 19-year-old wonderful adult things that really, in the long run now, as I reflect on who I am and where I am now, don't matter at all. My 2008 Dodge Charger could have been, a 1998 Dodge Neon, and I would still be the same person that I am now. So I'm wondering, and I encourage you to wonder the same, how many things do we idolize or demonize when they're new that we shouldn't? Thank you.